1794. Maryland. The mist clings to the lowlands, curling around the trunks of ancient oaks and whispering through the tangled underbrush. No one knows exactly why the soldiers are moving tonight, only that something drives them unseen through the shadows. Among them, men of color stepping carefully over roots and loose soil muskets at their sides, eyes alert, ears straining for any crack or rustle that might signal danger. Their breath rises in pale clouds mingling with the fog. The forest seems alive not with birds or beasts, but with the memory of those who walked here long before. Some say that in these woods the spirits of the enslaved linger watching, waiting, that the trees themselves remember every whispered plan, every broken oath. And tonight the march carries more than men. It carries secrets, rumors, and fears that cannot be spoken aloud. The moon is thin pale, casting long skeletal shadows. Every step echoes softly against the damp earth, yet in the stillness it seems louder. You might wonder as you listen now, what has brought these soldiers here? What invisible thread pulls them through the night? Before we go further, pause. Take a moment to notice where you are, what time it is. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of these Maryland woods. The damp chill presses against your skin, and the faint smell of smoke from distant cabins drifts toward you. Are you ready to follow them into the unknown? Leave a comment, share your thoughts, your location, your feeling in this moment. For the story is not just theirs, it becomes yours as well. The march began long before the sun fell in towns where whispers spread from one house to another. In the quarters where African American families whispered of omens, of soldiers who vanished and returned with tales that made the elders shake their heads in fear. The men themselves spoke little. Their eyes, sharp and wary, hinted at experiences beyond the telling of words. Letters, reports, scattered notices in local papers speak of phantom regiments, of groups of men whose names appear and vanish as though erased by fate itself. Tonight, the path winds past cabins that lean with age, past fields where crops have been burned to ashes, yet still carry the scent of past harvests and past sorrow. There is a rhythm to their movement, deliberate, almost ritualistic. And in that rhythm, the unseen watchers, the stories, the folklore converge. The forest holds them tightly, as though the trees themselves are conspirators. Every snapping twig, every rustle in the undergrowth is a question without an answer, a warning without voice. Somewhere ahead, a small creek reflects the dim light of the moon, and in its waters the soldiers' faces flicker distorted. Some claim that those reflections are not always your own, that the waters capture the memory of those lost long ago, that they whisper warnings and secrets of the past. And as the men move forwards, each step carries them deeper into history, deeper into myth, deeper into a night where the line between fact and legend is blurred beyond recognition. It is here in this fragile, tense liminality that the story begins, that the hidden march starts to reveal itself, that the interplay of real and imagined, of archival record and folklore begins to pulse faintly through the trees, through the mist, through the lives of those who dared to walk this path. 1794. Maryland. The lowlands swell with mist that curls like fingers through the trees, reaching into the shadows where no light dares linger. The soldiers advance carefully. African American men in 1790s military garb, muskets slung across shoulders, eyes alert for the faintest sign of movement. Their boots crunch softly against damp leaves, yet, in the hush, each step resonates through the forest like a drumbeat of anticipation. A cabin stands crooked on the edge of a clearing, its timbers blackened and worn. The windows dark, yet faint whispers drift from within as if the walls themselves remember the lives that passed through. The air carries the scent of burning pine, mixed with the sweetness of fields long harvested, and a faint, almost imperceptible note of smoke from distant hearths. The moon slices through the fog in thin skeletal beams, illuminating patches of moss and rough bark, casting shadows that twist and contort, like figures watching unseen. There is a rhythm to their movement, deliberate, almost ritualistic, each footfall measured as though the night itself demands silence. And yet in the stillness, the forest speaks in tongues older than men. Twigs snap under the weight of unseen creatures, or perhaps under the weight of memory itself. The path winds past abandoned homesteads, fields overgrown with weeds, and patches of forest where the air hangs heavy with the residue of whispered warnings. Lanterns swing faintly in the distance, their light trembling, as if caught in a breeze that carries the weight of old secrets. The soldiers pause, glance sideways, sensing figures just beyond sight, shadows shifting in ways the eye cannot hold. Some claim that those who disappeared long ago watch from between the trees, that the wind carries their murmurs, their regrets, their admonitions to those who tread here now. A creek murmurs somewhere ahead, its waters dark and glassy, reflecting faces that do not belong to the men walking beside it. Stories tell that these waters trap memories that they whisper, of vanished comrades and phantom regiments whose footsteps still echo in the soil. The men move on each step tethered to the rhythm of something larger than themselves, a pulse that belongs to history, folklore, and the spaces where the two entwine. Through the town streets lie quiet beneath the dimming light, cobblestones slick with evening dew, shutters closed against unseen eyes. The scent of molasses smoke and charred wood lingers ghostly and persistent. The soldiers pass unnoticed by anyone awake yet. The air itself seems to shiver at their presence, as if the town remembers events that never were recorded. Children once played here, their laughter now replaced by the distant echoes of stories half remembered, half imagined. The soldiers' eyes flicker to darkened windows, the glow of candlelight catching on cracked glass shapes shifting inside, as if the rooms themselves are aware, observing, waiting. Every step forward carries them deeper into this liminal space where the physical and the spectral converge. The forest thickens the air, damp the fog heavier. Sounds seem amplified and distorted, an owl's call. The rustle of leaves, the creak of distant timber, all coalesce into a symphony of foreboding. Somewhere a bell tolls faintly, though no church is near. The soldiers hesitate, muscles tensing, minds alert to every nuance of sound, every whisper of motion. Some swear the toll comes from the spirits of those lost, marking the passage of time that does not obey the calendar. The men adjust their march silent signals, brief nods exchanged, aware that the night demands both caution and speed. Their shadows stretch unnaturally long across the forest floor, merging with the darkness, blurring the line between soldier and specter, between fact and the tales carried by those who walked these lands long before. Fog thickens as the soldiers press onward, each step deliberate, echoing faintly against the trees. The scent of wet earth and decaying leaves mingles with distant smoke, carrying whispers of old warnings. Shadows seem to reach for them from every direction, twisting around trunks and rocks, forming shapes that feel almost human. Somewhere a lantern flickers in the distance, revealing glimpses of figures that vanish when looked at directly. The wind carries hushed murmurs like voices trapped between worlds half remembered, half imagined. The forest floor is littered with broken branches and trampled foliage, each step revealing signs of previous passage. Footprints that do not belong to any man. A sudden rustle startles a bird into flight, wings beating against the thick canopy. For a moment the soldiers freeze, listening. The very air seems to hum with expectation, thick with stories of those who disappeared without trace, the phantom regiment whose fate was never recorded. They pass a shallow creek, its waters dark, reflecting the pale moonlight. Some say the reflection is deceptive, showing not the present, but fragments of the past faces of men who marched here centuries ago, lost to history. The soldiers glance into it, wary of what might answer their gaze. Every sound, the splash of water, a snapping twig, feels amplified, carrying meaning beyond reason. The night is alive, and it watches. Beyond the creek, old cabins lean at precarious angles, their windows black and hollow. Smoke stains the timbers, remnants of fires long extinguished. The soldiers tread carefully, aware that these structures are more than buildings, they are witnesses. They carry stories of the enslaved, of secret meetings, of midnight warnings. Each cabin seems to exhale a memory, a warning, a secret that refuses to be forgotten. A small clearing opens ahead, moonlight spilling across the earth like pale silk. The soldiers pause, sensing that this space is significant, a threshold between the known and the hidden. Ghostly whispers thread through the leaves, brushing against ears like a touch. Legends speak of rituals performed here, sacrifices and oaths, promises made to survive the night. The air is thick with anticipation, almost unbearable in its intensity. Every so often the wind carries a distant sound like a drum beat or a chant, though no drums can be seen. Soldiers exchange glances, silent confirmations of what they already sense. The ground itself seems to remember, holding echoes of past marches, past disappearances. Some among them whisper quietly legends they were told by elders, warnings not to trust the eye alone, for what is seen may be a lie, and what is unseen may be the truth. The soldiers move again, keeping their formation tight, senses sharpened. Somewhere a branch snaps far enough away to be alarming, but near enough to unsettle. They halt, listening, trying to discern fact from imagination. The forest responds in kind, every shadow, every gust of wind, every faint scent telling a story. Stories of men who walked here before them, of vanished comrades, of nights when the air itself seemed to breathe. Past the clearing, the trail narrows, hemmed in by thick undergrowth and ancient trees. Darkness presses against their shoulders, the forest closing in. Faint light flickers between the trunks, as though the trees themselves are aware, observing. Some of the soldiers pause to listen, in hearts hammering in chests. Folk tales speak of spirits marking paths, guiding or misleading those who dare to move through these lands at night. The sound of water grows again, a small stream winding across the trail. Shadows dance across the surface as leaves fall and drift. Soldiers glance down, half expecting the reflections to reveal faces not their own. Some swear they saw hands reach up from the water, grasping, beckoning. The stories of the Phantom Regiment come alive, here murmured warnings of men who vanished, returning only in rumor and fear. Each step carries them deeper into the forest where the physical and spectral overlap. The moon dips behind clouds, dimming the light and sharpening the contrast between shadow and reality. The soldiers' breaths come in clouds, mingling with the mist. Eyes dart from side to side, seeing shapes that might be trees, might be men, or something else. The forest itself seems to test them, measuring courage against fear, patience against panic. The trail opens slightly, revealing a small hill, its peak lost in the fog. They climb cautiously, the every footstep deliberate, aware that the high ground is both vantage and trap. Legends tell of sentinels here, spirits watching for the unwary, marking those who might never leave. The men adjust their pace, silence threading between them, like a living thing binding them to the rhythm of the night. From this height, they glimpse the town beyond, dim lights flickering through the mist. It appears quiet, innocuous, yet the shadows tell another story. Ghosts of the past linger in every alley and window, silent witnesses to history's hidden truths. Each man feels the weight of centuries pressing down upon him, history and folklore intertwining in the chill night air. The wind carries voices faint but distinct, like chanting from the past. Some soldiers hear warnings, others hear encouragement. The line between warning and omen blurs fact and folklore entwined. The forest seems to pulse in time with these murmurs, each step measured, each breath heavy with anticipation. The night stretches endlessly, yet the march continues, relentless, unwavering. The trees thin slightly, giving way to a marshy area, reeds brushing against legs, waterlogged ground, threatening to betray each step. Legends say this marsh swallowed men, whole spirits rising with their cries. Soldiers tread carefully, aware that every misstep could be fatal. The mist hangs thick, obscuring vision, enhancing both fear and focus, each movement amplified. Lanterns flicker in the distance, distant fires, or perhaps apparitions. The soldiers tighten their formation, eyes darting to every shadow, every movement in the fog. Tales from elders speak of lights that lure men to their doom, guiding or deceiving depending on intention. Each step is calculated, each glance wary, as though the forest itself can judge intent and resolve. Footfalls echo against hollow logs, fallen branches, and unseen stones. A crow caws somewhere above its cry, harsh and deliberate. Soldiers feel it as a signal, or perhaps a warning from forces unseen. Their journey has become a dance with history itself. Footsteps synchronized with stories that have lingered in this place for decades, whispered from one generation to the next. The night deepens as the soldiers move further into the forest, their steps cautious. Deliberate, each crunch of leaves a question in the darkness. Records speak of men like these African-American soldiers, whose names appear in faded newspapers in the margins of official reports, only to vanish. The Freedmen's Bureau archives tell of groups labeled Fate Unknown Men, whose movements are recorded briefly and then erased from memory. Here the forest itself seems to guard those records, hiding them in shadows, in hollow trees, in the rustle of leaves. Whispers reach the ears of the soldiers, soft, almost human, carried on the wind. Some say the sounds are warnings, others insist they are memories, echoes of those who walked these paths before. Tales handed down in WPA narratives speak of runaway slaves who disappeared during the night, only to be seen years later as apparitions along the creek, or standing silently near cabins long abandoned. One man claims to have heard drums when no one else did, a beat that rises and falls with the heartbeat of the land itself. A faint glow flickers among the trees, not a lantern, not fire. The soldiers pause, eyes searching, muscles taut. Folk wisdom warns that such lights mark spirits guiding the lost or tempting the living into traps. In old ads for runaway slaves, the phrase fate unknown repeats like a haunting refrain, men, women, children slipping between worlds without notice. The forest breathes around the soldiers, alive with stories of survival, of punishment, of whispered omens carried across generations. The creek bends here wider than before, its surface smooth and black. The reflection is deceptive. Some swear that faces stare back that are not their own. Ghosts of soldiers, of runaway slaves, of forgotten villagers. Their mouths move silently, speaking warnings the living cannot hear. The men glance at one another, their formation tightening, sensing that the night itself is aware of their presence. Each footfall on the damp ground is both an act of courage and a violation of something ancient. Ahead, a fallen log blocks the narrow path. As they navigate around it, they notice faint symbols carved into the bark markings that appear old, perhaps older than the soldiers themselves. Legends claim these signs are protective charms, others insist they are warnings of the dangers ahead. One soldier reaches out to touch the carvings, feeling the rough grooves beneath his fingers, sensing a pulse, a memory embedded in the wood. The forest is not empty. It watches, remembers, judges. From the shadows, a distant sound rises low and rhythmic, like drums, like the echo of marching feet. Soldiers recall the stories of the Phantom Regiment men who appear suddenly and vanish without trace. The sound grows, then fades, leaving only the weight of silence and the fear that the night itself conspires. Each man grips his musket tighter, aware that history and folklore are entwined here, impossible to separate. Every shadow seems alive, every whisper a question, every movement a warning. An abandoned cabin comes into view, walls blackened by fire, long extinguished. The door hangs crooked, the hinges moaning in the wind. Inside, remnants of the past, a scorched chair, a torn curtain, a faded apron. Soldiers pause at the threshold listening. Folk tales say that the spirits of those who perished here linger, replaying moments of fear and defiance, their memories etched into the very timbers. One man swears he sees movement from the corner of his eye, but when he turns, nothing is there. The path narrows again, framed by trees so dense that moonlight struggles to penetrate. The soldiers move silently, aware that this forest remembers every footstep, every misstep. A sudden rustle, branches snapping, leaves falling, draws their attention. Folk narratives suggest that spirits mimic sounds, leading men astray, repeating their own noises, confusing the living with echoes of the past. Eyes dart from shadow to shadow, trying to discern reality from legend, every nerve heightened. The soldiers cross a small bridge over the creek, its wooden planks slick with moisture. Below, water flows silently, dark and reflective. Some insist the creek carries the memories of all who crossed it, that faces rise in the reflection, for those brave or foolish enough to look. Ghost stories speak of eyes staring up from beneath the surface, mouths opening to whisper secrets and warnings. Each soldier steps carefully, feeling history's weight pressing down, aware that the forest itself is a witness to every move. Lanterns flicker faintly in the distance, or perhaps they are illusions. The soldiers tighten their formation, every muscle coiled. Legends warn of lights that lead travelers to doom, or reveal hidden truths depending on their intentions. The men move forward, senses sharpened, aware that every shadow, every whisper, every gleam could carry messages from the past, or lure them into peril. The night is alive, pulsing with memories and omens, and the soldiers march into its embrace. A sudden gust of wind rattles branches above, carrying faint murmurs that are almost intelligible. Soldiers pause, eyes scanning the shadows for movement. Some whispers speak of men who vanished on these paths, returning only in dreams to warn the living. The forest seems to lean closer, as if it wants to listen as well, absorbing each footfall, each whisper, each heartbeat. A lantern sways far ahead, casting erratic light that twists into faces, or perhaps memories of faces. They advance through a section of dense undergrowth where the trail is nearly lost. Roots and fallen limbs threaten to trip them, yet they move deliberately. Folklore tells of spirits who hide in thickets, mimicking men's movements to lead them astray. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves could be the forest speaking, or the echoes of history replaying itself for those attentive enough to perceive. The men step lightly, aware that survival demands both caution and understanding. A faint, distant drumbeat reaches their ears, low and insistent. Soldiers remember tales of the Phantom Regiment men recorded in newspapers, archives, and Freedmen's Bureau documents, only to vanish without explanation. The beat grows, then fades, leaving tension so thick it presses against their chests. Each man feels the weight of expectation, the pull of stories woven into the land of warnings carried across decades by those who came before. The path opens slightly to reveal a small clearing, moonlight spilling across the ground in cold silver pools. Shadows stretch and twist unnaturally, forming shapes that seem to move independently. Soldiers exchange glances, unspoken communication in the line of men. Legends speak of this very clearing as a meeting place of spirits where oaths were taken and secrets whispered the air thick with unresolved memories. Every step forward feels both defiant and sacrilegious. Ahead, a stream winds across the path, its surface black, reflective, almost alive. Soldiers peer into the water, glimpsing faces that do not belong to them. Tales suggest the creek preserves the memories of those lost, replaying their final moments for any who dare to cross. A sudden splash startles them, though no one is seen. The men tighten their formation, each aware that history and folklore are intertwined here, inseparable. Old cabins appear through the mist, leaning and scarred by time. Smoke stains mark long extinguished fires, yet the air smells faintly of char and decay. Soldiers pass cautiously, aware that these structures hold memories of the enslaved, of midnight gatherings, of warnings exchanged in hushed tones. Each wall, each doorway seems to exhale a story, a cautionary tale that reaches beyond the living into the spiritual. The trail narrows, once more hemmed by trees so thick that moonlight barely penetrates. Soldiers move in near silence, tension rising with each step. A branch snaps, leaves fluttering to the ground. Folk legends say spirits mimic the living, repeating their actions, their sounds to confuse those who walk the paths at night. Soldiers' eyes dart, hearts pounding, attuned to every nuance, every flicker of movement. Crossing a small bridge over the creek, they notice the water's surface disturbed, reflections warped. Some insist they see figures rising from the black water, watching, speaking, offering warnings in silence. Soldiers step lightly, glancing at one another. Understanding the forest's memory holds both fact and folklore in equal measure. Every motion seems observed, every breath accounted for. Lanterns flicker in the distance, or perhaps illusions conjured by fear. Soldiers tighten ranks, muscles coiled, senses on edge. Stories speak of lights leading men to hidden truths or disaster, depending on their intent and resolve. They advance cautiously, aware that the night itself tests them, and that shadows may carry messages of the past or traps of the present. The forest opens to reveal an abandoned field, overgrown and silent. Bones of old fences jut from the soil, remnants of past life. Whispers of former inhabitants linger, warning, consoling, guiding. The soldiers move through it as if on a threshold, the boundary between reality and legend thinning with every step. Shadows cast by skeletal trees seem animate, dancing with the ghosts of history, and the air vibrates with the tension of countless untold stories. The soldiers press forward into a thicker section of the forest where fog clings low and damp, weaving between gnarled roots. Every step is careful, deliberate, the earth soft beneath boots, as though the land itself tests their resolve. Legends say this part of the forest holds the echoes of men lost to time, their footsteps replayed endlessly for those willing to listen. Branches sway without wind, shadows twist unnaturally, and whispers drift on the air, neither malevolent nor benign, but insistent. A small ruin emerges between the trees, stones covered in moss, timbers collapsed. The cabin's remnants speak of a family long gone, of fires burned out, of voices silenced. Folk tales suggest the house holds the memory of those who vanished here, the air heavy with unspoken stories. Soldiers hesitate, sensing both the weight of history and the pull of curiosity. Every creak, every gust, every rustle seems meaningful, as though the forest communicates through subtle signals. Crossing a narrow footbridge over a sluggish stream, the soldiers glimpse distorted reflections. Some swear the water shows glimpses of the past, not just themselves, but the faces of those who walked these paths centuries before. One soldier shivers, convinced the eyes staring back are not alive. The group moves quietly, aware that superstition and history intertwine here, that every movement, every sound might carry a message from the vanished. A faint drumbeat begins to echo through the trees, low and steady. Soldiers exchange glances. The sound is both external and internal, like the forest itself is beating in time with their hearts. Folklore recalls the phantom regiment men recorded in fleeting newspaper, mentions vanishing without explanation. The drum grows and fades, a haunting rhythm that seems to measure courage, patience, and fear alike. Each footfall aligns with the pulse of the forest, the march becoming a ritual as old as the land. The path opens into a clearing, pale moonlight spilling across the ground. Shadows stretch unnaturally, bending into shapes that suggest figures standing silently watching. Folk wisdom tells of these clearings as crossroads between worlds, where the living meet the memories of the lost. The soldiers advance slowly, aware that crossing such spaces is to step into the stories themselves. The air is heavy, scented faintly of ash and damp earth, carrying a sense of reverence. Through the clearing, faint lights flicker, perhaps lanterns, perhaps something more. Soldiers move cautiously, knowing tales of misleading lights, omens meant to confuse or guide. Each man's pulse quickens as history and folklore press in, inseparable. The whispers of the past rise around them, voices of those lost to fate unknown, murmuring warnings, guidance, and perhaps even encouragement. Each shadow, each rustle feels alive, part of a narrative older than any man walking these paths. The forest narrows, creating a tunnel of dense trees, fog pressing down, muting sound. Every snap of a twig, every falling leaf is magnified. Soldiers notice patterns in the shadows, echoes of shapes that may be men's spirits or both. Folk stories tell of spirits mimicking the living, guiding or misleading travelers depending on the observer's intent. They move deliberately, weighing each step against the risk of misinterpretation, the fear of crossing unseen boundaries. Ahead, a creek winds through, wide and reflective. Soldiers glance at the surface, glimpsing more than their reflections. Faces rise, some pleading, some accusing, some silent. Folk legend insists that the water captures memory itself, preserving the moments of those who vanished. Each man feels history pressing against him, heavy and palpable, reminding them that every path here carries both truth and myth. The trail climbs slightly, leading to a ridge that overlooks the forest canopy. Mist swirls below, hiding the paths, concealing the movements of the unseen. Soldiers pause, scanning the horizon. Folklore recalls the spirits of past soldiers watching, marking, waiting. Some say these sentinels test the courage of those who follow, rewarding patience and punishing hubris. Every gust of wind carries whispers of warning, encouragement, and expectation. The night stretches on, unbroken and expectant. Shadows lengthen, the fog thickens, and the forest breathes with memory. Soldiers press onward, their march synchronized not just with each other, but with the rhythm of countless lives that passed here. Every movement, every glance, every heartbeat is part of a continuum, a march through history intertwined with legend. They step into the unknown, guided by courage, fear, and stories too long forgotten to be mere words. The forest thickens, shadows deepening as the soldiers advance. Every step seems measured by forces unseen, as though the trees themselves are counting, marking each man as they move. A sudden rustle nearby halts them, a deer, or the echo of a long-lost voice carried through centuries. Whispered stories of vanished comrades rise in their minds, tales of men who walked these woods only to disappear into history. Each footfall is heavier now, laden with expectation, with fear, with the weight of unrecorded lives. Ahead, a narrow path splits the trees, lined with roots like veins across the earth. Soldiers hesitate, knowing folklore warns of crossroads like these. Some paths lead to safety, others to oblivion. The wind carries faint chants, indistinct, as if the forest itself is reciting warnings. A branch snaps sharply, and all eyes dart, nothing visible. Yet the tension tightens. The very air seems thick with stories unfinished, unresolved. They stumble upon the remnants of a cabin long abandoned. Its walls sag, timbers blackened, remnants of fires long extinguished. Folk stories insist that cabins such as these are vessels for memory, keeping alive the echoes of those who vanished. The soldiers tread carefully, aware that even touching a doorframe might summon shadows from the past. A sudden draft moves through the ruins, stirring ashes, whispering faintly, as though history itself breathes through the boards. Further along the path dips into a small hollow, moonlight, scarce fog curling around their legs. Footprints, human yet older than any living soul, mark the ground, leading deeper into the darkness. Soldiers pause, studying the prints. Folklore speaks of phantom marches, regiments that appear and vanish, their steps replaying in the forest long after the men are gone. One soldier murmurs a prayer under his breath, hoping courage alone is enough to protect them. The wind shifts suddenly, carrying the faint aroma of burning wood. Soldiers glance toward a distant cabin, its chimney still faintly smoking. Records speak of settlers who vanished overnight, homes found abandoned with meals half prepared. Folklore adds the whisper of spirits protective or vengeful, guiding or misleading travelers. The soldiers move cautiously, feeling the line between historical truth and legend blur. Shadows dance across the clearing, flickering like figures observing, waiting. A low rhythmic sound rises from the forest floor. At first indistinct, then unmistakably a drumbeat echoing through the trees. Soldiers recall archival mentions of the Phantom Regiment, men whose names appear and vanish without trace. The beat seems to synchronize with their hearts, a pulse older than memory, resonating across time. Every man tightens his grip on his musket, aware that legend and reality entwine in this nocturnal cadence. Crossing a small creek, the surface of the water reflects moonlight like molten silver. Some of the men see shapes, faces not their own, rising and fading, glimpses of soldiers long vanished. Folklore claims the waters hold memory, capturing souls for a moment before releasing them. The men proceed cautiously, senses heightened. Even the air feels aware, shifting with the weight of stories untold, history untamed. Suddenly a shadow moves at the periphery, not human yet, not entirely animal. Soldiers freeze, eyes straining. Some whisper, recalling tales of spirits mimicking travelers, leading them astray, testing their courage. The forest presses closer, muffling sound, heightening tension. The path feels alive, each step a negotiation with forces older than the land itself. A distant lantern flickers through the mist. The soldiers approach cautiously, uncertain whether it is a marker or a lure. Folklore insists that lights in the woods can be both revealing secrets or leading men into peril. The soldiers advance, muscles coiled, every sense alert. Each rustle, each flicker, each whisper is weighed against memory and myth, every choice carrying the potential to alter fate. The moon briefly emerges from clouds, illuminating a clearing where shadows twist unnaturally. Soldiers sense they are being observed, though no eyes are visible. Folk tales speak of spirits testing the worthy, punishing the careless. Each man steps deliberately measured, aware that one misstep could invite disaster. The forest itself seems to pulse with the accumulated stories of vanished men, echoing warnings in the rustle of leaves, in the bend of branches, in the sigh of the wind. A distant treetop rustles violently, though no wind stirs. Soldiers freeze, ears straining. Folk tales speak of spirits that move with intent, mimicking life, repeating movements to test the living. The forest seems to lean in, every shadow sharper, every sound exaggerated, echoing stories of men lost, vanished without record, warnings etched into the very soil. Each step forward is a challenge, a negotiation with memory and legend alike. They come upon a small ridge overlooking a marshy expanse. Mist hovers over dark water, hiding shapes that move just out of sight. One soldier spots a figure, fleeting, pale and gone before recognition. Folk stories speak of marsh spirits, guardians of lost souls, drawing attention to the brave or punishing the reckless. Soldiers exchange silent glances instinctively, adjusting formation, tension tightening like a drawn bow. Through the hollow, the trail narrows, hemmed in by twisted roots and ancient trees. The scent of damp earth and decayed leaves grows stronger. Whispered warnings seem to ride the wind, murmurs of vanished comrades, of phantom regiments, of men whose fates remain unknown. Every sound, branch, leaf, water, ripple, is amplified, carrying meaning beyond reason. The night presses close, urging vigilance, rewarding patience, punishing hubris. Suddenly, a distant sharp cry pierces the stillness. A bird. Or something else entirely. Soldiers halt, scanning, hearts hammering. Folk tales recount nights when cries of animals were portents, signals of danger or guidance from spirits. Each rustle of foliage, each fleeting shadow seems significant, weighted with history and legend. The men press onward, carefully feeling the forest itself observe their courage. A fallen log blocks the narrow path, carved symbols etched into its bark, worn by centuries. Soldiers hesitate. Folk wisdom insists such carvings are omens, protective or cautionary. One soldier traces the grooves, sensing a pulse of memory imbued in the wood. The forest around them is alive with echoes, whispering stories of those who vanished, testing those who dare walk in their footsteps. The night is thick with expectation, and each man feels it pressing against his chest. Past the log, a shallow stream murmurs, waters dark and reflective. Faces rise and fade in the reflections, some familiar, some ghostly. Legends insist that such waters capture memory itself, preserving moments for a fleeting time. Soldiers cross carefully, eyes scanning, ears straining. Even the forest seems conscious, each ripple, each shadow, each whisper a part of the story. The march leads them to an abandoned cabin, blackened walls, scorched timbers. Smoke stains linger faint ghostly. Folk stories say cabins like this house, memories of the enslaved replaying warnings and tales of midnight escape. The soldiers step lightly, aware that even minor contact might awaken echoes of the past. Every creak, every sigh, every draft is significant, as if history itself breathes through the rotting boards. Suddenly, the rhythmic sound of drums rises again, low and distant. Soldiers exchange glances, recalling reports of phantom regiments and men whose fates were unknown. The rhythm grows, pulsating in tandem with their own heartbeat, a cadence that seems older than memory. Shadows twist with each beat, stretching and contracting, like the very forest itself moves with them. Each step is measured, deliberate, testing courage, patience, and faith. And the trail opens slightly to reveal a clearing bathed in pale moonlight. Shadows stretch unnaturally, forming shapes that appear alive, watching silently. Folk legends speak of clearings as thresholds, where the living meet echoes of the past, spirits observing, waiting. Soldiers step carefully, aware that to move too quickly or recklessly could disturb forces older than themselves. The air hums with the weight of countless untold stories pressing on the senses. At the edge of the clearing, faint lights flicker in the mist. Soldiers approach cautiously, aware that folklore warns of lights that can mislead or reveal. Every rustle, every flash, every whisper could be a trap, a test, or a message. The forest pulses with memory, history, and legend intertwined. Each man advances, alert senses, sharpened hearts, synchronized with the rhythm of vanished footsteps. The soldiers enter a denser section of the forest, branches clawing at their coats, mist curling around their boots. Each step feels heavier, as though the ground itself resists their passage. From somewhere deep within the fog, a sudden shout rises, sharp, almost human, then fades. Soldiers exchange glances, the rhythm of the phantom regiment echoing in their ears. Folk tales warn that such cries can lure men astray or mark those deemed worthy to survive the night. A fallen tree blocks the path, twisted roots forming natural barricades. Symbols etched into the bark appear ancient and deliberate, worn by decades. Soldiers pause to examine them, fingers tracing grooves carved long ago. Folklore insists these are protective charms, warnings, or calls from spirits guiding or testing travelers. Every breath, every glance, every heartbeat carries the weight of the stories held in the forest. Suddenly, distant drumbeats rise, again steady and haunting, like a pulse beneath the earth. Soldiers recall archival reports of men who vanished in similar woods, names erased from records, lives labeled "Fate Unknown." The beat grows louder, resonating through the trees in time with their own pulse echoing through history. Shadows stretch, unnaturally bending, as though the forest itself is alive, observing, measuring. They approach a marsh, fog, thick and clinging water, dark and reflective. Shapes move beneath the surface, faces of those long vanished, staring silently. Folk legend says, the marsh preserves memory, replaying moments for those who dare cross. Soldiers step carefully, each footfall considered, aware that even minor missteps could carry consequences beyond understanding. Every rustle, ripple, or whisper seems charged with intent. A small hill rises ahead, its peak shrouded in mist. Soldiers climb cautiously, scanning the surroundings. From above, the forest stretches endlessly, shadows pooling like ink. Folk tales speak of sentinels watching from such heights, spirits of those who vanished long ago. Each gust of wind carries warnings, each shadow a test, every sound amplified by anticipation. The soldiers move with deliberate caution, hearts synchronized with the rhythm of the past. From the ridge, faint lights flicker across the clearing below. Soldiers approach with extreme care. Folklore warns of lights that mislead, testing courage, focus, and intent. Each rustle, flicker, or whisper could be a trap or a message from the unseen. The forest pulses with the accumulated memory of vanished men echoing across centuries. Every step forward brings them deeper into the unknown, tethered between history and legend. A sudden movement to the side startles them, shadows dancing across the undergrowth. Soldiers halt, breath held. Folk tales speak of spirits mimicking the living, guiding or deceiving travelers. The forest hums alive with the weight of the unrecorded, the whispers of the vanished, the lingering presences of men who walked these paths before. Each rustle, each shift of shadow is significant, an unspoken communication between the past and present. The path opens slightly to a clearing bathed in dim moonlight. Shadows twist into impossible shapes, forming watchers unseen. Folk wisdom insists that clearings are thresholds, meeting points of life and memory, where the living walk alongside echoes. Soldiers tread lightly, aware that reckless movement could invoke the attention of spirits, that silence is both protection and communication. The air hums with tension, laden with stories, warnings, and expectations. At the edge of the clearing, a lantern flickers in the mist. Soldiers advance cautiously, alert to the possibility that folklore may conceal danger or reveal hidden truths. Every sound, every movement, every glint of light carries weight potentially fatal or enlightening. The forest seems to breathe with history and legend intertwined. Every step is deliberate, every glance deliberate, each heartbeat synchronized with vanished footsteps and unspoken warnings. Finally, the soldiers reach the edge of the marshy clearing, the moon peeking through the canopy. Mist swirls around their feet, water rippling faintly. Shadows of trees bend like guardians over the path, shapes half-formed, almost human. Folk tales recount nights like this, where phantom regiments appear and vanish, where spirits test the worthy and deceive the unwary. Soldiers proceed with measured steps, hearts pounding, senses sharp. The forest presses close, alive with memory, legend, and expectation. The night stretches endlessly, each minute thick with tension, every shadow alive. Drum beats fade and rise again, rhythmic, haunting. Every rustle of leaves, every glint in the fog, carries stories too old to be recorded, voices too persistent to be ignored. Soldiers move with care, attuned to every nuance, aware that they walk the line between history and myth, reality and folklore, life and memory. The hidden march continues, silent, but full of presence, echoing through time. The dawn barely creeps through the forest canopy, casting long, uncertain shadows across the path. Soldiers press forward, fatigue heavy in their limbs, yet alert. Archival reports recall men who walked these trails centuries ago. African-American soldiers recorded briefly in newspapers, then erased, their fates unknown. The forest presses in around them, whispering warnings and memories, blurring the line between reality and legend. Each rustle, each shadow, each distant cry is amplified, demanding attention. Ahead they encounter a circle of stones, moss-covered, ancient. Folk stories say such places were used for rituals, oaths, and protective rites. The air hums with unseen energy, a pulse older than any living soldier. Some whisper prayers, others remain silent, feeling the weight of memory in the soil beneath their boots. The line between spiritual protection and forewarning is thin, almost imperceptible, yet palpable. A faint ethereal light appears beyond the stone circle, flickering as if alive. Soldiers hesitate, recalling legends of spirits guiding or misleading those who traverse the forest at night. The mist swirls around their feet, carrying the scent of damp earth, charred wood, and faint incense. Some swear they hear drums or footsteps, not their own, echoing across decades. Every breath carries a sense of history, pressing against the present, intertwining with folklore. Passing the circle, the trail narrows, hemmed in by twisted trees. Soldiers feel eyes on them, though nothing is visible. Folklore warns of spirits of the departed, of phantom soldiers who test courage, resolve, and intent. Archival documents mention groups of men who vanished while marching, returning in rumor, memory, or legend only. Every step, every glance, every heartbeat resonates with the rhythm of those who came before. A shallow stream crosses the path, its waters dark, reflective. Faces flicker in the surface, some familiar, some ghostly, moving silently with the current. Folk narratives insist that these waters preserve memory, replaying moments of the vanished. Soldiers cross carefully, aware that the forest is alive with consciousness, responding to intent, courage, and fear. The air seems to thicken, charged with spirits, stories, and warnings. The trail leads to an abandoned encampment, remnants of fires long cold. Ashes, scattered tools, empty cookware speak of lives abruptly interrupted. Folk tales claim spirits linger where life ended suddenly, replaying moments of fear and courage endlessly. Soldiers step lightly, glancing at every shadow, every timber, aware that each object holds memory. Each step may awaken echoes of the past. The night is dense with anticipation, the weight of history tangible. Suddenly, a drumbeat rises low, an insistent threading through the forest. Soldiers recall reports of phantom regiments, men recorded briefly, then vanished. The beat seems older than memory itself, resonating in time with their heartbeats, drawing them forward. Shadows bend and twist, echoing movement from centuries past. Every step carries both courage and risk, as the line between history and legend tightens. Crossing a small bridge, the creek beneath murmurs with unseen movement. Reflections shift unnaturally, shapes appearing and disappearing in the rippling water. Folk legends say the water mirrors memory, capturing souls and releasing them briefly. Soldiers step cautiously, eyes scanning, senses alert. Each rustle, each whisper, each shifting shadow reinforces the forest's dual nature, guardian and deceiver, recorder and trickster. The trail ascends slightly, revealing a small hilltop shrouded in mist. Soldiers climb, scanning the forest below. Folk stories speak of watchers on such heights, spirits who observe, mark, and sometimes test the living. The air hums faintly with energy, carrying both warning and guidance. Each man senses the forest's pulse aligning with his own, a rhythm woven from history, folklore, and the echoes of vanished men. At the hill's peak, the soldiers glimpse distant lights, flickering lanterns, perhaps, or something more ethereal. They advance cautiously, aware that legend warns such lights may mislead or reveal hidden truths. Every shadow, every flicker, every sound carries significance, history, and myth intertwined. The forest itself seems to breathe around them, alive with expectation. Each step is deliberate, each heartbeat synchronized with echoes of men who walked here long ago. The mist thickens, enveloping the soldiers as they descend into a low hollow. Shapes flicker at the edge of vision. Soldiers hear whispers in the wind, voices of those whose fates were unknown, relaying warnings and guidance in a language older than words. Folk narratives claim that spirits linger where injustice prevailed, where lives were lost to oppression. The men move cautiously, aware that courage and respect alone may protect them. A sudden sharp cry cuts through the fog, unnervingly human yet fleeting. Soldiers halt, scanning, muscles tense. Tales warn of such sounds, portents of danger, omens of lost souls, or echoes of past events. The forest seems to test them, each heartbeat, each breath measured against stories untold. Every motion, every glance, every whisper carries weight beyond reason, drawing them deeper into history and legend. The forest opens suddenly, revealing the remnants of a forgotten plantation, its fields long overgrown, timbers blackened by time. Soldiers pause at the edge, aware that every step forward carries the weight of centuries. Records speak of men and women who vanished here, their names fleetingly mentioned in papers, erased from history. Folk tales whisper that the spirits of the enslaved linger still, observing, guiding, judging those who traverse the paths. The wind carries faint echoes of drums, footsteps, and distant voices, weaving reality and legend into a single pulse. They move carefully across the decayed wooden bridge, spanning a murky creek, water black and still. Faces ripple in the surface, some familiar, some ghostly. Dreams told by elders speak of spirits rising from the depths to warn, to teach, to reclaim forgotten histories. Soldiers grip their muskets tighter, aware that the night itself seems alive, responding to fear, courage, and intent. Each breath, each footfall, each glance resonates with both the physical and spiritual memory of the land. Beyond the creek, the path winds into a grove of ancient oaks, trunks, twisted branches interwoven like the arms of long-departed watchers. The mist thickens, softening edges, blurring shapes. Folk legends speak of oaths sworn under these trees of spirits, marking the worthy testing resolve. Soldiers move with deliberate care, hearts synchronized with the rhythm of history, each step measured against the lessons of the past. The forest itself seems to breathe, pulsing with accumulated memory and expectation. A faint flicker of lantern light appears in the distance, far beyond the trees. Soldiers approach cautiously, unsure whether the glow signals refuge or peril. Archives recall phantom regiments appearing suddenly in the night, men whose movements were recorded, then erased. The glow dances across the fog, shifting, beckoning, challenging. Each soldier feels the weight of unseen eyes, the scrutiny of both history and legend pressing close, pressing in. The trail descends into a low hollow, where fog clings to every branch, every leaf. Shapes move at the edge of vision, shadows that seem alive. Folk tales say the spirits of lost soldiers mimic the living, testing courage, humility, and intent. Every rustle, every shift of the mist, every snap of a twig is imbued with significance, an unspoken communication across time. Soldiers proceed cautiously, aware that the forest watches as much as it guides. They reach the remains of a cabin roof, caved timbers, splintered walls, blackened by old fires. The air smells faintly of smoke and damp earth. Folk narratives insist that spirits of the enslaved linger in such places, replaying moments of terror, defiance, and escape. Soldiers step lightly inside the ruins, listening to whispers carried through the wood, the floor, the very air. Each sound echoes history. Each shadow carries a story. Suddenly, a drumbeat rises from nowhere, low, rhythmic, insistent. Soldiers recognize the cadence from earlier legends, the phantom regiment returning to measure them. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the forest floor, twisting in time with the beat. Every step forward is a test of courage. Every glance a negotiation with forces older than memory. The pulse of the forest becomes a drum of fate, echoing the footsteps of the vanished and the living alike. A chill wind rises carrying whispers of names long forgotten. Soldiers feel the weight of history, pressing on their shoulders, guiding, warning, judging. Folk tales recount that those who walked these paths before left traces in the air and the soil and the fog itself. Eyes flicker toward shapes in the mist, and for a moment past and present seem indistinguishable. Every heartbeat resonates with those who came before those lost, and those who still march unseen. The path climbs toward a ridge, the forest thinning slightly, revealing distant lights beyond the canopy. Harlem in the distance, or visions conjured by memory and story. Soldiers advance aware that the journey connects Cabin Forest River and distant city, spanning decades of memory and legend. Dream narratives intertwine with reality, footsteps of men long vanished, drums echoing through empty streets, shadows moving across forgotten fields. Each step is both passage and test, a bridge between worlds. At the ridge, the moon breaks through clouds, illuminating the forest in stark silver. Soldiers feel a presence behind ahead. Everywhere, the pulse of the phantom regiment entwined with the whispers of ancestors. Folk tales speak of guidance, warnings, lessons learned, and tests endured. Every breath carries weight. Every shadow hints at memory. The night stretches on heavy with expectation, history, folklore, and the invisible footsteps of those who walked before. The march ends as dawn breaks, pale light filtering through mist and skeletal branches. Soldiers stand quietly, breath-shallow hearts still racing from the night's weight. The forest is silent now, yet alive with memory. Shadows linger, whispers remain, as if the trees themselves remember every footstep, every breath, every fear. The air carries a faint scent of smoke, of damp earth, of something older, something unseen pressing against the edges of perception. Reports will call it a routine march, men returning safely, names recorded briefly, and then fading from the ledger of history. Yet the soldiers know better. They have walked with shadows, seen the reflection of the vanished, felt the pulse of phantom regiments and spirits of the enslaved. Every step, every breath, every glance was entwined with echoes of lives lost, lives remembered, and lives that persist in story, song, and memory. Beyond the forest, the land opens to fields, once tilled, cabins, long abandoned streets, empty, but for whispers of past footsteps. Harlem awaits far ahead. City lights piercing the dawn, yet the soldiers carry the forest with them. Dream narratives, warnings, lessons from the departed linger in their consciousness. Ghosts of the past accompany them in subtle ways, shaping courage, guiding intuition, echoing through their movements long after the march concludes. Time stretches elastic, bending between past and present. The names of men who vanished, labeled fate unknown, echo in records, whispers, and memory. Scholars and historians may study these events, tracing clues through archival fragments, reports, and newspaper clippings. Yet some stories resist capture, slipping between fact and legend, haunting the places where they occurred. The forest remembers, the spirits persist, and the march remains alive in the air, in the mist, in the hearts of those who follow. Songs, spirituals, and whispers carry the memory forward. Communities tell stories of vanished soldiers, of strange lights in the woods, of phantom drums in the night. The past reaches across generations, teaching lessons, offering warnings, preserving courage. Folk tales entwine with historical records, ensuring that even in absence these men remain present. Each note sung, each whisper told, resonates with their passage, their march, their unseen influence on the land and its people. The soldiers depart the forest quietly, but the weight of the night remains. Every shadow, every rustle, every memory etched into the land follows them. The forest holds its secrets tightly, yet shares them with those who listen, who honor its stories, who move with caution and respect. Each step away is a step forward into history, into legend, into the enduring narrative of courage, loss, and persistence. And so, the hidden march concludes. Yet, it is never truly over. Names may fade from records, bodies may return, landscapes may change, but the echoes remain. Shadows shift, drums pulse, whispers rise. The forest, the land, the people who walked and vanished, they endure. They teach us that history is never fully gone, that folklore carries memory, and that courage once tested reverberates across time. As you listen now, consider the paths they walked, the eyes that watched from shadows, the whispers that followed them. Ask yourself what you might carry from this story. What lessons remain hidden, what echoes you might hear if you walk carefully through the forests of memory and legend. The march may end for the soldiers, yet it begins anew for each listener willing to follow. You have just witnessed one thread in a tapestry of history long untold. The forest holds countless others waiting, observing, persisting. Follow these stories, share these echoes, and carry the memory forward. Leave a comment with your thoughts, where you are listening, what you felt, and let the rhythm of the past guide your own steps. For the hidden march is more than history. It is a living pulse that persists in story, in memory, in spirit, and in the hearts of those who dare to remember.